Today, I want to describe to you the worst possible economic outcome that, unfortunately, I think we're very close to. And no, it's not stagflation. For anyone who's watched this channel before, you know that I've said that we're the closest we've been to stagflation in a long time, and stagflation is an economist's worst nightmare. Well, this economic scenario, stagflation is only a part of it. So let's dive right in. So this worst case economic scenario, think of 2008, the Great Recession. The only thing is, during that time, the saving grace was that the government had to bail out the corporations and the massive banks. So we got carried along for that ride. They pumped a bunch of liquidity into the market and they saved the economy, although it was at a major expense. And that is that the next economic cycle, the one that we're in from 2008 to now, technically it's two economic cycles, they've been built on basically a house of cards. It is extremely cheap money. And if you even remove or think about removing that cheap money, like the Federal Reserve had to do over the last couple of years to fight inflation, even if it's only 4% on the FFR, that throws everything out of whack, and you end up with what we're dealing with today, which is a jobs market that is much worse than we thought. So think of 2008, except that you don't have that saving grace. The government doesn't have to bail out the corporations or the banks because they're still making money. And that has to do with artificial intelligence, AI. AI was supposed to make all our lives easier, automate a ton of mundane jobs, but instead what it's done is it has become a massive force that is starting to automate high-paying jobs like software development, like graphic design, like website building, website security, pretty much very high-end, high-paying jobs it has gone after. It did not go after the low-end, low-paying jobs that you would expect, your first job to be. Those are still very much being done by humans, although now even there, robots are starting to be introduced. So this horrible scenario starts today, right now, and that is in a weakening jobs market. You have the beginning signs of stagflation. You have prices that are continuing to rise. You have inflation that is above the Federal Reserve's target level of 2%. And while 3% doesn't seem that far off, it's 50% higher than where the Federal Reserve wants. Yet at the same time, their next meeting, and probably the meeting after that, they're going to cut their FFR. They're cutting their FFR, which is used to fight inflation, even though we're dealing with inflation, because the jobs market is not doing so well. And the jobs market is where artificial intelligence has begun to play a major part and will only continue to play a larger part. And I know some people have written off AI as just a language learning model, and it's not going to go beyond that. It is. It already is. I see it in every facet and every aspect of life, especially in the corporate setting. Any job that can be done by AI will, because it is cheaper than a human. So what you're going to end up with is you're going to end up with an environment that is very high inflation, like we have now. You're going to end up in an environment where the Federal Reserve is going to continue to pump tons of liquidity into the market to try to save the jobs market. That is your classic definition of stagflation. And what you're going to have is you're going to have companies trying to find ways to prop up profits as people spend less money in the economy. People are going to spend less money in the economy because they're not working. And artificial intelligence is very likely going to fill that gap. And when more and more massive multi-billion-dollar corporations realize that artificial intelligence can do just as good, and in the very near future, better than humans, they're going to implement it to a higher and higher degree. And that is only going to hurt the jobs market more and more. Yet the Federal Reserve, as it is, tends to be behind the eight ball. They're going to continue to pump liquidity into the market to try to save the jobs market. So this nightmare scenario, you basically have inflation that continues to increase, yet you have jobs that do not increase. So you would say that's stagflation. The only difference is you don't have a stagnating economy because corporations have realized that they can plug the hole in their ship with artificial intelligence. So their profits either stagnate but don't go down, or lo and behold, they actually increase because their bottom line is better, even though their top line is lower because they've been able to cut such massive costs with artificial intelligence. Now, of course, this is all theoretical. This has not happened yet, but the pieces are lining up. We have the Federal Reserve cutting their interest rates. We have the jobs market suffering. And we have this new horizon of artificial intelligence, which every day, if you're a business owner, looks promising. But if you are an employee, looks more and more terrifying. And of course, that is where the last piece to this puzzle, the government, steps in. The government is going to realize that people cannot survive. People cannot spend money if they don't have money. And of course, the entire system, even the companies that are using artificial intelligence, rely on money to make money and to make their investors happy. So that is where, in my opinion, over the next 5 to more so 10 years, we're going to see the beginning stages of UBI, Universal Basic Income. And that is because artificial intelligence is going to have such a massive impact on everybody's everyday careers and jobs that it's going to have to happen. UBI is going to have to happen. And whether the federal government decides to fund that by borrowing more money, which they already do, whether a ton of money is printed by the Federal Reserve, or whether it is a taxation on companies that use artificial intelligence to fund this social welfare program, I definitely think UBI is happening. And while on the surface, I've been a proponent of UBI. I think everyone should be able to live above the poverty line. On the surface, it sounds like a good thing. The problem with any sort of direct welfare program like this that just pumps money into people's pockets, we saw it with the stimulus, is it is inflationary. And when you have an economy that is not under the threat of inflation, fine, we can deal with a little bit. But if you already have an economy that is inflating, that is in an inflationary environment, which I believe over the next 5 years, 3% is going to be the new target for the Federal Reserve. 2% is going to be so difficult and unattainable to achieve that when you have that type of environment and then you start pumping dollars into people's pockets, even if that's a taxation on artificial intelligence, it is going to be inflationary. And this is where I say, this is why the title of the video is, it's a spiral. It is a downward economic spiral, just like the national debt has been an upward economic spiral that we cannot get out of. Because when you print and print and print money, and you borrow and borrow and borrow, which is what the government has done, you end up with this debt load that is so massive that you have to continue to borrow money just to service the debt service the interest payments on the debt you already have. And when it comes to this UBI, stagflation, artificial intelligence downward spiral, it's going to be the same thing. You are going to have to pay people to be able to survive. Yet things are going to be inflating that more and more of that UBI and whatever jobs are left, that income is going to be spent to a higher degree on the basic necessities. So while artificial intelligence could have absolutely changed everybody's lives and made everybody's lives better, because of capitalism, it is likely to do the opposite. It is likely to enrich further investors and corporations by cutting costs while eliminating jobs. And as more and more of these jobs are replaced and more money is pumped into the economy through UBI and through the Federal Reserve being behind the ball and realizing way too late that they're causing a problem, you are going to have more and more of people's income used on basic necessities, which means that I think we are seeing the first time in a long time, we are seeing the standard of living decrease day after day. And generation after generation, I fear for the future generations, if we do not get our shit together and get our heads out of our asses, I fear for the future generations because we are moving, instead of to a utopian future, we are moving to a dystopian economic future. And artificial intelligence, while as powerful as it can be and as life-changing as it can be, because capitalism is capitalism, it is currently and it is going to continue to be used in a for-profit way that benefits corporations over the average employee. That is my rant for the day. I have nothing else for you guys. I wish this video could end on a positive note. It can't. It can't end on a positive note unless we start to seriously veer and change direction, because the course that we're headed down is not a good course for the country and for the average American. And the average American is who should matter. Not the investor, not the corporation, the average American. And the direction that we're heading, it's the opposite. The average American is going to suffer for the profit of investors and corporations. If you like personal finance, world economics, and investing, you're in the right place. If this video was informative or enlightening, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. It's difficult to grow here on YouTube, so every subscription means the world to me. I do videos every week, honestly, a lot more often now because there is so much crazy stuff to talk about in our crazy economic world. So whether that video is tomorrow or next week, I hope to see you in the next video. With that said, I hope you have a great rest of your day, even though the topic of today was not the happiest. With that said, take care. See you in the next one.